These are the craziest top 25 horror transformations in the movies.
Hey! Sue, open the door. Open the door, Sue, come on. Hey.
Yep, this movie's only just been released, but it's taken the world by storm with an idea that's both unique and interesting. And yeah, it manages to deliver a great female-led story without having to rely on the typical bait-and-switch trope. The Substance is a brilliant take on body horror, which shows exactly how the system eats you up from inside while making you feel like you wanted all of it in the first place. Now, the basic plot is about the old Elizabeth, who uses a reverse aging drug to turn into the young and desirable Sue, but the process to get there isn't all that pretty. I want to include the first transformation from Sue to Elizabeth, as well as the monster transformation when Sue runs out of the substance and turns into that scary old hag. The sequences are carried out quite well, and you can also see shades of Stanley Kubrick in both of them. There's the Stargate sequence, which inspires the first transformation, and The Shining, which has a hand in the monster transformation. Man, just imagine being your girl, feeling all romantic and stuff until boom, you were manipulated by a troll monster. I'd probably turn into a monk or something after that.
You haven't changed their futures. You haven't saved any of them. Close your eyes, Beth. If you don't believe, close them and see.
Pennywise the Clown got a great surge of new fans when the reboot It movies released, although I have to say that the sequel kind of fell flat in front of the first film. Either way, there's one thing that does stand out, which is the transformation of Pennywise from human to clown. It's when Beverly runs into him back when he was still a person, and while the transformation isn't too out there like the previous entry, Bill Skarsgård really put in everything for his performance. The dialogue delivery coupled with the makeup being put on his face was already spooky enough, but then to scratch his face so badly that his blood made up the rest of his face was the cherry on top of the cake. I know Tim Curry was the one who first made the role iconic, but he was more towards the clumsier side of the character. What Bill did here with Pennywise was truly worthy of the horror genre.
Yeah.
Now, you may not have been expecting to see this entry, but I feel it's such a great addition to modern horror transformation while throwing the spotlight on the classics. Werewolf by Night is a Marvel production, believe it or not, and it's a short film, so it does qualify for the list. While the rest of the movie isn't anything exceptional as such, the final sequence where Jack transforms into the werewolf was actually quite artistic, but then to have the transformation happen via the shadows with the focus on a panicking Elsa was a nice touch. You can sense her fear and the general feeling of danger arriving soon. The final werewolf design was pretty cool too, and the way Jack totally rips into Verussa and the others right after was a savage way to end the whole scene. Some might complain that the visibility wasn't the best here, but I personally feel that was an intentional choice to make the whole thing feel a lot more surreal. I mean, we're dealing with a mythological beast that's capable of ripping apart entire squadrons by itself. You've got to hype it up if you want the payoff to be strong. Men have dominated the werewolf genre for a long time now, but there have been some insane transformations when it comes to the ladies. After all, the TV region is proud of its equality measures, which is why we have this scene right here from Ginger Snaps. Now, we all know that werewolf transformations are supposed to be ugly and stuff, but this one just takes it to a whole other level. The Fitzgerald girls are clearly not the type you should be dating, and that's proven with evidence here when Ginger goes crazy with her monster form. It's not shown with a lot of clarity, just like the previous entry, and this time I believe it could be because of a budget issue. Having said that, I'd still say that the flickering lights and cut shots added a sense of mystery to the transformation. The best part about this moment is that it somewhat happens out of the blue for us, because nobody expected to see such an ugly monster head pop out like that. We don't really see anything over the top or dramatic, but Ginger does manage to spook the daylights out of the viewers with this one. The Evil Dead franchise has been more of a surprise package in the world of horror. Nobody really expected the first film to become as popular as it did, and the various sequels and spin-offs that came after have surely cemented its name as a staple for all horror aficionados. As one would expect, this kind of popularity didn't go unnoticed in modern Hollywood, which has clearly run out of ideas when it comes to making fresh stories. However, Evil Dead Rises was definitely an impressive horror film that impressed people everywhere and reassured us that the genre wasn't dead yet. Ellie's transformation from caring mom to murderous deadite was a great highlight for the film, as it suddenly turned sympathy into fear. Yeah, I personally went from, "Oh, please save her guys," to "Damn it, just get rid of that witch right now." It's actually indicative of a great transition, because everything evil Ellie does after her awakening goes on to show that she would have been better off dead. Plus, the design and makeup of the character was done exceedingly well. I also felt that the actress playing the role had the kind of face which sort of matched the vibe of the Deadite. Of course, I'm not being mean to her or anything like that, just making an observation.
Let me kiss it better.
The OG film can never be topped, so 2011's The Thing was at best an inferior copy of the original. Having said that, it did have some crazy transformations that would have actually made it to the top of today's list, had the CGI not been so awful. The scene where Kate's trapped by Juliet was a specifically hard-hitting moment, because it made you realise that the enemy isn't just extra powerful, but also super smart. We may have thought it was Juliet the whole time, but it was actually The Thing just tricking us into thinking that. She clearly had a plan here, and Kate was going to be a goner had it not been for plot armor. But seriously, there's no way you're escaping that abomination with such a calculated mind after seeing a human split open in front of your eyes with that haunting roar. I think what makes it even creepier is the fact that Juliet's face makes us believe she's aware of what's going on, but is completely powerless against the beast. You've also got a feel for that nerd who gets impaled as collateral damage when Kate barely makes her way out of danger. You know, I heard they had some crazy practical effects for this movie, but the studio told the director to use CGI because it seemed as if they were copying too much from the original. Then why didn't you say anything about the script then, eh? Oh man, who knew that a cult classic from 1998 would end up here with CGI? That's almost 30 years old. That just goes to show what staying power really looks like, and The Faculty definitely became everyone's favourite movie once they realised just how good it was. The transformation scene in question is when we all find out that Mary Beth was the alien queen all along, which in itself was a huge twist that shocked everyone. That look on Stokely's face kind of said it all, and then to see the massive monster spring to life was a sight worth remembering for 90s filmgoers. The CGI it may have dated a bit, but it was definitely solid during its time, plus the transformation is followed by a pretty intense finale. The pool scene showcased the alien queen in all of her glory, which made us realise just how deadly she actually was, but still managed to maintain such a disguise in the form of Mary Beth. I was rooting for her to be a proper final girl, until I realised she was the one whom the final girl needed to survive. I did mention the first It movie was a lot better than the sequel, and it so happens that the transformation from Georgie to Pennywise was also good enough to land at number 18. If you think about it, the whole thing was a full circle moment, as Bill and the Losers Club spend the entire film's runtime trying to look for Georgie, hoping he's still alive. Sadly, that wasn't to be the case, and the dancing cloud made sure to communicate that in a manner as insensitive as Andrew Tate. The transformation sequence in itself was brilliant, with the movements pretty much looking like a stop-motion horror show. The atmosphere was so dark, and the look on Bill's face when he pretty much realised that he's not getting his brother back was quite heartbreaking to watch. See, this is what the visual effects artists should have taken into consideration while moving into the 2020s, not whatever the heck it was that they did with She-Hulk.
Kill it, Bill! Kill it! Shit.
Your wigs!
Captain Bolded. Igranus.
Good.
No.
This is one of those movies you watched as a kid but can't remember if it really happened or whether it was just some crazy dream. 1990s The Witches is supposed to be a campy family horror, but trust me, this specific scene is all horror if you consider how scary Angelica Houston looks in her makeup here. Her role as the Grand High Witch was played to perfection, and the fact that she was able to stay in character even with all those prosthetics on top of her speaks volumes about her dedication to that role. As an adult, not only is this scene intense and scary, what's amazing is the use of the different perspectives and the many different camera angles, which really help create stress and tension. The director of photography did a truly excellent job, and I gotta give props to everyone else in the scene who also looked quite upsetting as witches. I love Anne Hathaway, but there was genuinely no way she was gonna top Angelica in the remake.
Very long!
The devil!
Seth Brundle's a likeable guy in general because of his focus, and also because he possesses Jeff Goldblum's unmatchable charm. So to see him slowly transform into a fly was one of the most horrifyingly brilliant things that David Cronenberg has ever done his whole life. There's not just one particular scene that I want to highlight here, because the process is actually perpetual and covers the runtime of the film. The slow degradation from human to monster is captured wonderfully in the movie, and I also have to shout out Gina Davis for playing an unlucky girlfriend to the T. The final scene had the most graphic moments, which involved a full Brundle fly, and I must say, those effects were peak level stuff. I like the way they made Brundle disgusted with what was happening to him. Usually in horror films, the afflicted don't seem to be bothered by their new abilities, but this is very realistic and shows Brundle is still there, which is why he held that shotgun to his face as his final act of humanity.
No! I can't!
about that? A movie that I personally don't like at all has somehow managed to land 2 entries in this list. I suppose when you break down the movie into scenes, there are sequences that can be salvaged, and one of those moments is when the Thing assimilates both Edvard and Adam into a singular being. I know they say 2 heads are better than 1, but damn, this is taking it a bit too far. Technically, Edvard is already the Thing at this moment, so assimilating Adam was kind of like an add-on for him. It was definitely creepy and disgusting to look at, and let's not forget all the other weird stuff happening around this scene, like the Thing arm. The CGI was definitely disappointing, but the sheer devastation was more than enough to place it at number 14. What I find funny though is that when they were filming the set, the 2 actors were probably laying side by side, face by face for a few minutes. How adorable. There's no scene in the history of horror movies that's made me go WTF as instantly as the shocking reveal in The Taking of Deborah Logan. What appears to be a nice old lady with Alzheimer's at first is suddenly revealed to be some demonic creature who likes to feast on little kids for supper. The fact that there's no music when she's revealed makes it way more terrifying, and with the found footage style cinematography, it genuinely feels as if you'd be seeing the exact same thing if you were really in that situation. Great acting all around as well, especially Jill Larson for shifting between confused granny and bloodthirsty monster in a matter of seconds. Also, how the heck did that guy miss his shot when he was literally just 4 feet away? That's worse than my sniper skills on Call of Duty. Ah yes, we're finally at the point where we get to see the first time the Evil Dead franchise went truly graphic with their depictions. The rest of the movie was definitely never short on gore, but when you consider the way the movie opens, you wouldn't expect anything less. But yeah, the misdirection was crazy, especially when the subject is this seemingly innocent daughter. It was painful to watch the father do this to his own child, but there was no other way out, and the Deadite transformation did more than enough to convince him that he wasn't going to get her back. Man, this scene is the literal representation of the meme where he says they had him in the first half. Man, hearing her suddenly say she was going to rip out her own father's soul sure took a moment for me to digest.
I love you, baby.
What the?
James Gunn is an odd director, but he does give you memorable stuff. Before the days of the Guardians of the Galaxy, bro was giving us horror classics like Slither, and if I'm being honest, I would have definitely liked him to work a bit more on these types of movies rather than rebuild the entire DCEU. Anyway, the transformation of Grant in Slither is pretty much like all of the unused ideas for The Thing. It's not an instant moment, but does happen gradually throughout the movie, which is what makes the final form so much more intimidating. What I really don't get though is how Brenda asks Grant if he's okay after getting infected. Woman, you've just seen an alien worm getting into his body and blood spurting out of his eyes and ears. Heck no, he's not okay.
Shoot him! Walruses never cry!
My top 10s always start off with something memorable, and in this case, it's the infamous transformation from Tusk. Yeah, I still don't know how I feel about this movie, and it's been a whole 10 years since its release. Kevin Smith is a really twisted mind, and this movie's key transformation proves that beyond reasonable doubt. Like, why the heck would you want to turn an actual human being into a walrus? Howard torturing Wallace and eventually turning him into what he believes is Mr. Tusk is something that the faint-hearted should definitely avoid. Man, the whole thing just felt like a really messed up South Park episode, so I suppose that in itself speaks volumes about it. Men of culture may love wild cats, but I don't think anyone is equipped to handle Natasha Kinski in Cat People. Irina is a character so conflicted, and it's shown beautifully in a transformation scene. Well, I actually wanted to use more extreme words, but there's no way I'm going to say anything that doesn't sound like a compliment to Natasha. Cat People is definitely a horror movie, as can be seen in this brilliantly executed transformation, but let's be honest here, you know exactly why a lot of men know of this movie's existence. Anyway, there is a merit in its story as well, and Irina's turning into a freaking panther was definitely a key highlight and core memory. Yep, 1981 was a great year for werewolf transformations, as we got to see this gem of a sequence from The Howling. Eddie's turning into the mythical beast was an excellent display of horror mixed with suspense building, as all of us wanted to know what he'd look like, even though we were all scared at the same time. I mean, the guy looks scary enough as a human, so to see him turn into a werewolf only made things worse for poor Karen. A lot of people have said that she's just standing there and doing nothing until the transformation is complete, but sometimes your body just freezes, and there really is nothing you can do about it. Thank God she didn't run away, otherwise we wouldn't have got to see such a great, uninterrupted process. World War Z doesn't get as much love as it should because it presented us with a very detailed take on a very dangerous assumption. What if zombies could run? Yeah, I know we got to see this first in 28 Days Later, but the sequence here is a lot more refined with a lot more explanation. Seeing that one dude contort his body while the countdown was going on was a great way to enhance the intensity of the moment, and you could see from Jerry's face that he knew things were going to go from bad to worse. Can you imagine if there were zombies like this in The Walking Dead from season 2 onwards? That show wouldn't have even made it past another 6 episodes. It actually brings me to another point, which is that they should have tried to turn this into a series rather than a movie. It would have definitely worked better that way.
In the station.
Here's a fun fact. If you collect first letters of names of the main characters, that would be David, Eric, Mia, Olivia, and Natalie, you'll get the word demon, which is exactly what the main antagonist of the entire franchise is. Of course, it goes without saying that Mia played the most captivating demon of the lot, and her transition was perfectly executed. It was done in a tasteful manner as compared to the controversial version in the OG film. Don't get me wrong though, it still looks repulsive AF, and Mia's cries of anguish totally make you super uncomfortable. What's great about the scene and the movie in general is that it really focused a lot more on the horror aspect than the original, and it made us all poop our pants, especially when Deadeye Mia came to the fore. Jane Levy nailed this role, and I wouldn't have had anyone else play it.
You are all going to die tonight.
You moron. Tonight I will kill all of you.
There are some silly mistakes that you simply can't make as a human being. One of them is blindly challenging a werewolf to transform in front of a live audience. Sure, maybe the poor guy has stage fright, but the moment he witnesses a full moon, there's nothing that's going to stop him from going on a rampage. And that's exactly what happens here when Larry Talbot is mocked by the Doctor in front of everyone for the sake of a simple ego-pleasing session. Yeah, the price for that became way too heavy, as Larry not only proved his challenger wrong, but also went on to give us a peak transformation scene. For all the hate that Wolfman's received, I'd say the practical effects and transformation scenes were really top-notch, and this one specifically stood out to the point where it was used as a reference in modern films as well. Yeah, it kind of sounds weird to consider a 2010 film not being modern anymore, but that's just how life goes, doesn't it? Benicio del Toro adds a lot of depth to the sequence because a werewolf transformation requires the subject to also do a good job in order to land the right impact. See, he's definitely a lot more than Brad Pitt with extra seasoning. Anyway, the transition was brilliant, and it was also satisfying to see that smug Doctor get what he deserved, although I would have preferred if he survived the embarrassment so that he could reflect on his actions and not make fun of werewolves ever again. Ah yes, this is easily a top 5 horror movie of all time, and it's actually what I consider to be John Carpenter's greatest contribution to cinema. Yeah, he made Halloween, which is a lot more famous, but the thing is just a masterclass in horror in so many ways. It's gone on to become a cult classic, and rightly so, because there's so much about this movie that sets it apart from the others. As far as transformations go, we know that the thing likes to assimilate its targets and then take on their forms. What we didn't expect to see though was a giant monster mouth that would open up right in the middle of the chest defibrillator scene. Man, after looking at this, I'm sure a lot of people would have gone like, yeah, I'm definitely not going to become a surgeon when I grow up. The jump scare was highly effective, as everyone would have just thought that Norris was out for the count. But no, the dude comes back in the most horrifying way possible, and the transformation that follows the jump scare was a great example of practical effects coming to the fore. Now, if you compare this to the 2011 prequel sequences, you'll know exactly why it lands at number 4, even though those others still did good enough to make it to this list.
You gotta be kidding.
In a world where so much content is available to view and stream, it's important for gigachads like us to be strong and determined not to give in to our intrusive thoughts. Unfortunately for Jack Torrance, he failed that test miserably in the green bathroom scene of the 1980s epic The Shining. It starts off as a rather strange experience with Jack entering the bathroom and noticing a total babe in her birthday suit. Man, the look he gave her after that kind of made me want to cover myself with a blanket, but bro got played right at the end when he was locking lips with what was actually an old evil hag. Yes, the highly attractive woman who just randomly decided to get freaky with Jack was actually some kind of ghost who was preying on his shady intentions. It was an instant transformation, and the camera work really makes you feel its impact. I mean, think about it. With all the Stanley Kubrick references in The Substance, there was no way this whole hag scene didn't inspire the first entry on this list.
Keep away! The soul is mine!
This movie shook the world for ages to come and is still spoken about quite often as the scariest film of all time. A lot of people like to act brave and say they didn't get scared while watching The Exorcist, but even in the rare case that they're telling the truth, there's no way they wouldn't have thought of Regan at least a couple of times at night after that. Now, as far as the transformation is concerned, there's nothing that's shown in immediate detail, but there are multiple scenes that imply how she was turned into the demon Bazazu. Right from the unholy cross scene to the eventual reveal of a demonic form, Regan's transformation was extremely spooky and creepy AF. Just look at her face. That's straight out of a nightmare, and I sure hope to never come across anything like that in my life. This movie came out in 1973, so you can only imagine how much of an impact it would have had on people all over the world. It was easily the scariest thing you would have seen on the big screen, and kudos to actress Linda Blair for keeping up with all the tiring and injurious shooting to give us a transformation and a character that would haunt us for weeks on end.
Where's Regan?
In here with us.
Show me Regan and I'll loosen one of his trap.
And you're helping old altar boy, Father?
Your mother's in here with his card. Would you like to leave a message? I see that she gets it.
Jesus Christ! What? God!
You can make any type of transformations list you want, but one thing will always remain constant. The transformation scene from An American Werewolf in London is going to be the top entry. This was done all the way back in 1981, which speaks volumes of how amazing the practical effects were at the time. Yes, I did cover the Howling not too long ago on the list, but come on, once all the comparisons are done, there's only one winner who comes out on top. The way David screams in pain so randomly adds a ton of realism to the scene, so when the transformation also happens with carefully directed angles and techniques, you're made to believe that this is exactly how a werewolf would transition in real life as well. The slow capturing of the limbs and the muscles were also perfectly well done. Oscar for Best Makeup, which the movie won in 1982, just kind of feels like an underachievement. Also, the usage of music was simply brilliant. To play such a nice, happy song in the middle of the most brutal physical experience David must have had his whole life does have an added touch of class. So yeah, this is exactly why you'll only see this entry at number 1 the moment I'm covering any kind of overall transformation scenes. Hope you liked the video. Please subscribe to the TV Regent, and here's another video that I know you're going to enjoy.